Welcome to another episode of Your Stories. I'm Danny Fagan, and this is My TMS Journey, my story out of chronic pain and anxiety. But this series is dedicated to members of the chronic pain and TMS community to share their stories, what helped them in their journeys, whether they're still in the thick of their recovery or they're completely pain-free or symptom-free, whatever that is. We're going to start some really cool conversations and just get different insight from different people that may have used different healing modalities than I did or than the norm. And this story today is really unique because Jamie suffered from very different and very varied symptoms throughout her life, and used a varied kind of mixed bag of tools and modalities to heal herself. So I'm really interested to hear her story. I know a little bit about her so far, but not a lot. So this will be just as educational for me as it will be for you. So I'm going to invite her in now. And this is Jamie Sewell. Sewell? I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know. Here we go. Welcome, Jamie. Hi.
Hi,
How are you
how are you?
doing? I'm good. Nice to see you.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. I was just, I gave a little bit of an intro into your story. I don't know a lot about it, but what the bits you have shared with me seem like it's gone on for a long time for you and taken many twists and turns. So I'd like to just start off basically by just giving you the space to go back in time a little bit, how it started for you, kind of how things progressed, what sort of symptoms you had, and kind of how old you were and all that kind of stuff. Just start wherever you think and just go with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I'll start from the beginning,
Yeah.
and and I'll just confess, like up front, that I totally have imposter syndrome. So for anybody else who watches this and feels like they have a story that they want to tell, just effing do it.
Yes, agreed. It's your story.
So
You can't possibly go wrong. Just go with it.
yeah, so just do it.
Yeah.
And then I think it lets us off the hook a little bit, right?
Yeah,
So
we can just wing it. Go
and
for it.
and it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think I've had TMS probably since I was toddler, so probably at least since I was 4. I remember when I was 4 having really bad headaches and really bad stomach aches.
Right.
Um, my family life was a little bit chaotic, and I think as my nervous system was developing, um, it felt unsafe in some
Mhm.
ways. And I think that a lot of folks with chronic issues can really, I think there's a lot of that. And my family was, relatively normal, I would say.
Mhm.
But I think that, as I got older, there was a lot of conflict and a lot of anger. And I think as I got older, I dismissed that. And I think that dismissal and that repression and suppression really was part of what fed into the TMS that I've had
Yeah,
since the
for
age of
sure.
4. So I just turned 36. And, as I look back, I can just see like where it kind of took hold more.
Mhm.
So, when I was younger, it was really anxiety and fear, and that manifested in headaches and stomach aches. And then, but I was always such a people pleaser that
Yeah.
I would never fess up to feeling anxious.
Uh-huh.
I have it all together, like even when I was quite young, confident and all of this. And so then I think around the age of like 12, and definitely by the time I was 14, I started having pretty bad back pain. And I rode horses growing up. And so I had a few really bad falls to my head and to my face, and so then it gets in. So then, my parents were very good about taking me to the doctor, right? So then,
Yeah.
well, let's fix my neck, let's fix my back. And and so then, but it never went away, you know, it just kind of got worse and worse. And it was like, okay, we're going to find like that doctor or that cure or that treatment, you know, tried acupuncture, chiropractic when I was younger, you know, and it just kind of was there. And particularly as I was growing up and in my younger 20s, I didn't tell anybody outside of my family that I even had this, right? Like, it's like I can barely sleep at night.
Under wraps.
Yeah. So it's like I can barely sleep at night, you know, and then I'm tired all day because I'm not sleeping because I'm in pain. You know, and then it just kind of becomes this domino effect.
Yeah.
You know, where it starts with some pain, and then I think that kind of influenced my mind some, you know, to start focusing more on the pain and more on negativity. And I actually call it like the low grade life, because it's like you just, you know, when you're in that chronic pain, I think it changes your brain, and I think I became accustomed to living that way.
Yeah. And
so physical pain, then became emotional and probably spiritual pain.
Right. And then it cycles and cycles.
That's right. You know, so then when you're used to it, so then it just becomes like a domino effect.
Yeah.
You know, and then you start to add in like just life stress. And so I got married, moved across the country, you know, that of course those are normal stresses, but when you're already in that cycle, you know, it's like a constant drip where just keeps dripping. And then my husband got deployed, you know, so then I'm halfway across the country by myself, my husband's gone, and, you know, and it's just that steady drip. And so then I guess this was when I was about 28, I think, you know, and it was still like, oh, I'm fine. You know, so I'm going to pain management. By this time I'm on tramadol for pain. So I've already tried trigger point injections. They didn't work. Nerve block injections. They didn't work. You know, I'm seeing neurologists, I'm seeing pain specialists, I'm seeing chiropractic.
And was it still the same kind of pain that you'd had from that younger age then that just sort of perpetually got worse over time? Same sort of symptoms? Same sort of symptoms.
I also, I guess when I was about 14, started having carpal tunnel type syndromes. It wasn't carpal tunnel. I played the piano. And so, you know, eventually it was like, oh, well, you can't play the piano anymore because like your arms just are so bad. Like you just gotta rest. You just gotta rest, you know? And it's like, how much effing rest does one person need? You know? It's just like,
your mind's like,
right. Well, and then it's just the pushing away, right? So it's the continuous denial. And then that just keeps that loop going. If I just had acknowledged it, you know, maybe I would have worked through it faster.
Right.
You know, I don't really think that there's mistakes. And so I'm really actually quite grateful for the journey because I've learned a lot. And I think that there's really been like, I would call it some quantum healing, you know, where it's not even just my own healing that's happened, right? It's like my parents' healing, my siblings' healing, my husband's healing, right? And so it's this expansive thing. And I think, but it starts with ourselves. And so I'm getting a little off track, and so I'll bring it back. So I'm in pain management. They're like, we're doing all these treatments, nothing is working. I'm taking all these drugs. Tramadol seems to be the only thing. And this is like, you know, before the opioid crisis was really like kind of busted, you know, so they're like, yeah, sure, you can take 400 milligrams of tramadol. That's fine. Doesn't matter. 24 years old.
For you? Yeah. Was that something that you had to do on a daily basis? Do you think that you became like dependent on that? Not saying you're a drug addict or anything, but like,
I was totally dependent on it. And it was interesting, you know, because I'm 24. I've already tried nerve blocks. I've already tried all these different things for, you know, Lyrica and all of them.
Yeah, I did Lyrica too.
And and then, you know, they're like, well, it's not habit forming, you know, it's not like, you know, some of the serious ones. So it's not that,
Right.
it's fine, you know, and then I'm like, well, I still have the pain, but I mean, it's more manageable, I can sleep, but I still have it, you know, we'll take more, take more. So then after 400, you know, then was like, well, okay, maybe we drop you back down to like 200. So I was on 200 milligrams tramadol for 10 years.
Wow.
You know, it's so, and my husband and I really like to travel. And then that became like this whole anxiety producing thing, because you got to make sure you've got your meds.
Yes.
You got to make sure you don't run out. Like,
I've been there. Yeah. Yeah.
and I did run out one time, and it was not good, right? Because then I'm dependent on it, and it's like this whole thing. And then, you know, that we've got this awareness that, oh, we shouldn't be taking opiate drugs. And then it's like, oh, well, now you're taking drug tests every month, you know? And then I'm like, I'm doing what my doctor prescribed me to do. And now I feel like I, you know, am like a druggie or something. And it just becomes this other layer. So anyway, I guess by the time I was 28, my husband decided, oh, I'm going to go to business school. And for somebody who, I didn't realize this till kind of recently, that I really value stability, like a lot. Yeah. Like, you know, it's, I think it's just safety. Like that. Yeah, it's a safety thing. You know, it's just safety and security. And what I've learned is that it's really giving it to myself. And that's really where the key is. But at the time, it was like, you're supposed to be the stable one. My husband's supposed to be the stable one. So we move, he goes to business school, and I just like really like went downhill. And it was like an overnight thing. It was before we moved, but it was like I like almost couldn't get off the couch. Like my hair is falling out.
Wow.
You know, I'm like shaking, I'm weak, I can't play soccer anymore. You know, I think I'm literally going to have to take a leave of absence from work. You know, and so then I power through it, you know, and I'm going to work, and I'm just like pumping myself full of like 5-hour energy to kind of get through the work day, because I'm exhausted.
You must have been absolutely ruined, like mentally, physically, emotionally. That's a long time to be in that cycle.
Yeah, it was, you know, but it was kind of like, well, it was familiar. You know,
it's almost safe, right? That's all you know. Yeah,
and so then I'd had like some issues with like infections, and so like there's infections, and then that starts to feed into like my body's not healthy, you know. And then, you know, we talk a lot about like autoimmune issues, and your body's turning against you. Your body's not turning against you. Your body is always working for you. But it thinks that it's under fire. It thinks there's a threat, right? That's TMS like in a nutshell.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, so then it's like, oh, well, you got to see these infectious disease folks and like do like these ozone therapies and take, you know, $800 of supplements, you know, and, you know, so it's just like doctor. So like throughout the process, like, I guess from like 28 to maybe 26 to 30, I probably saw like 30 or 40 doctors.
Wow.
Some where we lived in Texas, and then some in Chicago. And it was like none of it was working, right? And I'm just like more depressed.
Is that all traditional type of medicine? And this is not bringing any mind body stuff in it yet or anything?
Yeah,
and you did,
it all started just traditional, you know. It was like infectious disease and chiropractor, neurochiropractor, and I guess the chiropractor is a little, you know, on the edge there. But and then I did start, and then I guess when I was around 28, I did start to see like an integrative doctor, and so I was dabbling with that,
right?
You know, so with the nutrition and supplements. But I think one of the things, even within you know, nutritionists and naturopaths, is that you depending on your perspective, I think I ended up looking at it like, oh, these supplements are going to like fix me, right? And like, oh, well, this food is bad. Like I'm allergic to this, or I'm sensitive to this. And so then that creates more stories
More
about,
fear as well, right?
yeah,
You think it's
yeah,
going to
right.
fix you, but you're also scared of it or not doing it right because you think it's going to fix you. So you have to get it absolutely right. Otherwise, it won't work. And the fear cycle fuels everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it does. It's definitely a fear thing. And, so yeah, I'm trying, I'm, dabbling with that stuff. And then I'm still seeing all these specialists in Chicago. And then, I was getting some NATE treatments for my allergies, my food allergies. And,
So what treatment? Sorry, NATE, did you say?
NATE, N-A-E-T.
Okay, I've not heard of
Yeah,
that.
so it's a form of acupuncture.
Okay.
But it's to help us clear allergies. And so, we've got our yin and our yang channels. For me, it was always the emotional channel. I think I forget which one. I think that's the yin. I don't really know. Yeah, I'm not but it was always the emotional one, and anything she's clearing. And then sometimes it would come back, and well, why is it coming back? Well, it's coming back because of what's going on here, so we clear it and then it's coming back. And by this time I was really like mentally not in a good place,
right.
And really even thinking about like self-harm, and I mean just really, really not
really dark,
good. And I've got by this time I've got migraine induced vertigo.
Oh my God.
So I'm having trouble driving, having trouble walking sometimes. And so my NATE acupuncturist, she's like, there's this cranial sacral therapist that I've worked with, and I think that you should see him. And that was really like the turning point. Okay. Cranial sacral therapy for me is probably the reason why I am where I am. And it was funny because, are you familiar with cranial sacral therapy?
No, not at all. I'm just absolutely engrossed in what this is going to bring to the table, because I've heard of it, but I have no idea what, I assume it's something to do with your head, but other than that, I don't know.
Yeah, right. So you've got of course, your cranial base, and then you've got your sacrum, your tailbone. And so basically within your spinal cord, it's essentially a hydraulic system. Okay. And so you've got this cranial rhythm that goes automatically, from the base of your skull down to your tailbone, and just keeps going up and down. And anyway, so when you're getting cranial sacral therapy, you lay on a massage table, very relaxing, and they put 5 grams of pressure usually on, or one hand under and one hand above a certain area. Because what happens is that we get blockages, right? We know with TMS that we get these blockages, and we store them in all sorts of different places in our bodies. And so for me, I was not even I was barely acknowledging that I had the pain, other than the fact that I not doing so hot, and so I'm barely acknowledging it. And then I'm certainly not acknowledging the mental and emotional and spiritual side of it. And so for me, that was like, I didn't have to do a lot, right? Like I'm just kind of there. And that therapist is like, you should see results after a few sessions. And I'm like, I don't know. Like I just was like passing out. I think my nervous system was just like shot.
Yeah, you were shutting down by this point.
Yeah. I'm just like passing out, and I'm just like waking up, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm still hurting, but okay, all right. Well, let's just kind of keep going. But what happened was then my migraines went away, and I stopped getting dizzy, and then the ring in my ear was less, and so it was like, well, I don't know. It's doing something. I don't know what it's doing. And then we moved to Florida, and I met my cranial sacral therapist that I still see 6 years later. And it was funny because then it was like, healing is all in layers. And that's very much what it was. Like layer 1 was like, I'm passing out on the table, and like, I don't know where I go. Layer 2 was we're cleaning out our closet. All this shit that you've been like
get to the good
stuffing in there, we're
Right.
coming out, you know. And I think like I've seen that in some of like the TMS chat boards, right, where like they're journaling or folks are journaling and things like that, and like, oh man, my anxiety is going through the roof, like I'm crying, I feel like I'm a mess. It's like,
nervous system, like explosion of everything coming out of Pandora's box, right?
Right. Yeah. You know, so it's like, I always like use the analogy of like, you're cleaning out your closet. I'm cleaning out my closet. And I feel like I've been moving through another phase of it, but it's like, when you're reorganizing your closet, a lot of times you pull it all out before you put it back in.
Yeah, and I think it looks like a right mess before you do anything with it.
Yeah. So I think that was a big deal, and it was like for me it was a safe way to start to acknowledge things that had been emotions that had been stored in my body.
So was just to run back a little bit, was that like the cranial sacral stuff, that was, you feel it was kind of settling because you managed to pass out on the table, and it was like relaxing in a sense that you managed to let go? And do you think that was then nervous system settling at the same time as clearing whatever blockages that was doing? How did it go from kind of being passed out and relaxed to getting to the emotional release stuff? Was that just a bit of a process, or did you do anything else was there any other part of the practice that you had to do to get to that cleaning out of the closet, or was it just like a progression that you naturally felt happening?
Yeah, it was just a progression. You know, it's funny because like, I feel like our bodies sometimes are like, hey, or not even just our bodies, right? Like even the universe, I feel like it's like, hey, we're going to keep giving this to you, and we're going to keep giving it to you, and we're going to keep giving it to you, and you can work through it, and you can acknowledge it, you can learn your lessons, or we're just going to keep bringing it up. And I think that like once that first, probably like that real like survival layer was kind of cleared a little bit, and it was like, then because the body's only going to bring up what you can handle. And I think that's one of the really nice, safe and gentle things about cranial sacral therapy is it's only going to bring up what it can handle right then. So I think my nervous system, my body, my mind probably was not in a place where it could go deeper.
Can't address anything at the moment, right?
Yeah. And so then after we started to clear, you know, some layers, then some things could come up. And I think that was the other thing with cranial sacral therapy is there's no forcing. You know, I think with TMS, one of the personality traits is, you know, we're just gonna fix this. Like, we're gonna fix it. We're gonna like work really hard at this.
We're gonna get it absolutely perfect and get it done. Right.
Yeah, and it doesn't really work that way. And particularly with cranial sacral therapy, because your body doesn't lie, and so your mind may be like, well, you know, we create all these stories and all this stuff, but your body, you know, is kind of like, well, look, your mind told me this, so I don't know any different. So it's in here somewhere, and now it's got to come out. Exactly. You know, and so it's really just facilitating your own healing. So it's really just, you know, of course, we have energy in our hands. Like if you touch a circuit board, you can burn out the circuit board just from touching it, right? So it's just using some of your energy from your hands to facilitate healing. It's pretty cool. I took like an intro class a few years ago, and it's surprising how quickly you can start to feel like strain patterns and blockages in the body. And so, you know, a cranial sacral therapist, they're just really like kind of listening in and
they're
and
sort of like tuned into that energy, right? Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's super cool. And so I've tried a bunch of other things over the years because I didn't find out about TMS until like a year and a half ago.
Oh wow.
So, you know, what was interesting was I was making progress for sure. a little less on the pain. And I think that was like the part that I really started noticing, because I started to have a better relationship between my mind and my body. Like I was starting to honor my mind and my body more, because before it was like this. And after a certain number of sessions, it was like, we've got to honor our body.
You stop battling at some point, don't you? And just like give in to the,
Yeah. And so, so I got to that level and was like, okay, I'm going to work with myself, not against myself. And I tried a lot of other things. But, what I found was that a lot of them, they may offer some relief, but they didn't offer a lot.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, man, and by this time I'm doing a little better. I'm doing gentle yoga with mostly seniors, and at least people my parents' age and much older, so here I am, like I'm like 30 maybe, and I'm doing yoga with seniors, but it was like, well, that's where I'm at. So at least
some of my favorite classes are some of the senior classes, to be honest. Like they know what's up.
Yeah, right. Like, they're there and they're just like loving themselves.
And it's so beneficial, that restorative kind of just settling down. Like that's key to restoring your nervous system, really, is to just like, at first, certainly when you're getting back to movement, right? That's kind of what I teach sometimes in part of my stuff, is like the slower the better, really. So even if you have low mobility, or you have, you're old, whatever, you can still have all the benefits that yoga can bring to the table, whether you're mega bendy and doing power moves or not,
Right. Yeah. I think it all has its place.
Sure.
Right. And I think the most important thing is, as I'm sure you talk about all the time, is just honoring where you're at.
Exactly. Yeah. Just accepting exactly where you're at. Even everyone's at a different stage, no matter what you're suffering from. But just accepting where you are is such a huge level of like peace you can bring to yourself and your nervous system, that can really propel you forwards, if you can just stop battling with yourself and where you're at and where you think you should be, or where you think you might be, or everyone else is, or comparing yourself and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It really helps. So sorry to tangent you off what you were
talking
about.
No. I love it. Well, so I started trying a bunch of different things, and I'm trying visceral manipulation, which is kind of a more like trying to manually release like tissue. I'm seeing different chiropractors. I still see a chiropractor who uses muscle testing, because I found that that's the only one that I will hold an adjustment for at all, is if they're asking my body, what I need, versus like, we're just going to do this and you're going to hold it. Like,
it's interesting that you still do quite a lot of that stuff, because I found that when I was concentrating on my physical issues with physical treatments, that I was kind of reinforcing that message to my brain that there was something physically wrong with me. But I think it totally depends on the mindset that you have around those things. Like I can go to a massage with a different mindset and it won't trigger things like that, I think you get to a point where you can understand that on a different level and still do whatever works for you. Like that's, different things work for different people. So
well, no, you're exactly right. It's a mindset shift. So a year and a half ago, and I want to circle back on some other things, but we're on this. So a year and a half ago, and I also had like pelvic pain. I had endometriosis. I mean, you name it, probably. Like I'm like, how, at one point I'm like, how is one person so unlucky with all this stuff?
Your body was like, listen to me.
Yeah, right.
I'm screaming at you, listen.
Right. So my coworker is like, there's this book. It's like Healing Something. He's a big Howard Stern fan. So, well, Howard says there's this book. So you got maybe look at this book, Healing Something. Oh, Healing Back Pain. Okay.
Yeah, and then you think, whatever, I'm going to heal from a book. Yeah.
Well, I think I had done enough work at this point, though, that I was a lot more open, because by this point, I'm like, something doesn't add up. I'm seeing football players, American football players, getting hit on the football field, and like, and they're fine. I mean,
getting back up and
maybe
playing.
they're not
Right.
fine, right? But like I have had a few bad horseback riding falls, and you know, I'm in like dire pain all the time. Like
Yeah,
this
you
doesn't
feel like you're
make
falling to
sense.
pieces. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like this doesn't make sense to me. You know, it's like I'm taking care of myself. How much taking care of myself do I have to do?
Mm,
You know, and it's like it just, so it wasn't totally adding up for me.
right.
And so you know, I think there's just like divine timing. And I think that this was like the divine timing,
Yes.
was seeing this book, and I ordered it right away, you know, reading the reviews, and I'm like, okay,
Wow.
all
Yeah.
right. So I read it, and I, you know, and I love how he just walks through, because it's like, yes, this is me. All of this is me.
Same.
You know, and so then it was like, okay, all right, you know, so I read it a few times, and
Did you think, I mean, you saw yourself in that book, but were you completely bought in at that time, or was it like, oh, this is interesting, maybe there's something to do with it, or were you like, yeah, this is definitely what's
I mean,
going
I
on?
didn't have anything to lose. You
For
know,
real?
I saw myself. What I really appreciated too was like the statistics and the data
Yeah.
that he had in the book,
Right.
because I think that like really starts to solidify, like, you know what, like this is
The
not
belief
like
stuff.
a one-off or something like that. Like this
Yeah.
is something that like he's been testing and measuring.
And he's a
Um,
doctor as well, right? It really
yeah,
helps that he's like, he knows his stuff and he's not just some kind of woo woo crazy dude coming in with
yeah,
this mad idea. Like, yeah, it's credible.
right.
Very
Yeah.
credible. Yeah.
So, you know, I read it a few times, and I think he had something in there about like, you know, people heal. It takes a different amount of time for people to heal
Yeah.
differently, right? And I think he even mentioned something about like if you've been in pain for a long time, like it may take longer, right? Because your brain is rewiring, like
Yeah.
you're learning how to operate in the world in a different
Yeah,
way.
it's like learning things from scratch, isn't it? It's like Dan said in the interview I did the other day, like it's almost like learning a new language.
Yeah,
It's teaching you stuff that doesn't resonate with anything else that's happened in your life. I mean, maybe for you, obviously, with the yin and the yang and the mind body elements of the acupuncture and stuff like that, some of it was ringing true. But otherwise, yeah, it just takes your brain a hell of a long time sometimes. And something that Nicole says quite regularly as well in her podcasts and stuff, like if it takes you 37 years to walk into the forest, it's not going to take you like 20 minutes to walk out, right? And that's definitely true
right,
for me as well.
right. Yeah, exactly. I write a lot now. And one of the things I wrote is that, you know what, perfectionism doesn't happen overnight, and
Yeah.
neither does bravery. And I think
Right.
I think bravery and healing kind of go hand in hand a little bit, because I think it's really kind of like claiming your
Yeah.
healing, and really claiming self-love,
I agreed.
and just being like, you know what, I love all of you,
Yeah,
not
love that. Love
just
that.
the part of you that I think is not broken, right? Or whatever. I don't think that we're not broken.
Right.
But I think when we get conditioned into this, well, I have the back of a 90-year-old, you know, and so, you know, you look at the MRIs, and yes, that is what my back looks like. And I'm sure that you probably got
Same.
some
Jacked
gnarly,
up. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah.
know, and
And
actually one of my teachers,
the amount of doctors, sorry to interrupt you, just the amount of doctors and specialists that you must have seen over that amount of time as well, like how much you are broken messages you've actually dealt with. That's difficult to unlearn all of that in itself, I think, isn't it? And think differently.
yeah, I think so. And so it took some time, and I was okay with that, you know, because I was like, well, I don't really have anything to lose. And it just was ringing so true for me that
Yeah.
just, all right. And I think it took about 6 weeks before I started like feeling some shifts in my body.
That's
And I'm
pretty
like,
quick
well,
though.
that's
Yeah.
interesting,
Yeah.
because, you know, I've done these other things, and there's particularly with detoxing, I think is the other, if you've really got a lot of other chronic challenges happening, I think detoxing is really important. So that was the other part of it that was important
Mm.
for me. But it was like, so knowing what the shift was with detoxing already, and then understanding, oh, I do feel a little bit different in my body, you know. And so then so I read the book last May, and then by last December, I was pretty much off tramadol.
Wow, that's still so recent. I had no idea that that was literally just like last year. That's amazing. After
Yeah.
so long. Wow.
Yeah, after so long. And, you know, I had been trying for years with like pill cutters to just like shave a
Yeah.
little bit off my tramadol. And it was just like up here,
Yes.
it knew it was a lesser amount, and it was like, oh no, you're not.
Yeah, we're gonna fire some signals at you now. You're frightened. Let's go.
Yeah. And so that was December was really when I really got off. But it was interesting. So I read the healing back pain book, and then there was a bunch of things that happened. And I think that, like, it's like when you're ready, I think you're ready. And my mom always does all these like hippy dippy alternative things, and I'm her daughter.
There's a
So
lot of things, but yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
oh man, yeah, a lot of like network marketing, and so I'm just like, yeah, Mom.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not. Oh my gosh. So anyway, she kept talking about this like Thrive supplement, and you know, I'm just like pushing her off because I'm like, look, you've done like 10 jillion of these things over the years. Well, I finally was like, you know what, I don't have a lot to lose. And I read the healing back pain book, but I still what I was struggling with was getting moving. You know, I wanted to move. I like to exercise, but I didn't have a lot of energy. Yeah. And so I was going to yoga a couple times a week by this point, but it still was not feeling super great. Like it was like good enough that, and I knew I needed to take care of myself, and I knew it was good for me, so I would do it. But it still was like a bit of a challenge. And I progressed a little bit, so I wasn't doing as much yoga with the seniors. I was like kind of in like flow 1, flow 2. So anyway, this Thrive supplement and Thrive patch really was like a game changer. Like it really gave me more energy to start exercising more regularly. And guess what? Then I start feeling better, you know, because then it's like, oh, I have a little bit more energy, I can do more. And then you're kind of in that cycle of, oh, I can feel good, I can feel better. And then I had a few, my massage therapist, by this time I'm starting to like exercise more and more, and like starting to work out.
So you're definitely starting to feel better by this point. And also I think it's important to mention as well, like, you know, regardless of what type of supplements you're taking and all that kind of stuff, I think just turning that corner of actually taking care of yourself more and really like changing your habitual health patterns, whether that's eating better or, you know, just getting back to actually, and that goes back to, I suppose, an element of the self-compassion stuff as well, that you're not battling with yourself anymore, you're actually looking after yourself. So I think there's definitely an element of that kind of works into the feeling better, as well as you know, regardless of what else supplements you were taking for the energy and stuff like that. I think as soon as you start to feel better about yourself and looking after yourself, then that has a knock-on effect as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I had been like, I've eaten really well. And so I felt like I had a lot of these other pieces that I kind of work through, you know, but it still was like, man, I just still don't have the energy. And I think, you know, I also had like, you know, a lot of chronic adrenal fatigue. I don't know what they look like these days because I don't go to the doctor anymore. So we talk about, there are some things I still do, but there's some things that I don't do. And that is, if I needed to go to the doctor, I will go to the doctor. But guess what? I don't need to go to the doctor. So I'm not going to the doctor. I don't need to get a blood work panel to tell me something that I already know, which is I am as perfectly healthy and whole as every other human on the planet.
Love that.
And so I had really high Epstein-Barr numbers and chronic adrenal fatigue. and my cortisol levels were very high even
Yeah, I
last
mean,
year.
makes total sense. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And so, I was eating very cleanly, doing lots of greens and things like that. So for me, it just, so the good news is I already had some of the frameworks there. It's funny because I think a lot of folks maybe discovered TMS and then maybe go the opposite. I feel like I almost have done a lot of it backwards.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And so I'm working out more. So this is also a story, by the way, I'm convinced. I'm working out more, so my muscles are getting tighter. So then I'm going to get a massage once a month.
Right.
Well, what do you know? My massage therapist is a Reiki master. And I didn't know anything about Reiki. I grew up in a very conservative Christian home. And, like, oh, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, even though your mum's a major like hippy dippy, that's interesting. Did she not know about Reiki? Has she heard about that?
Yeah. That's probably a story for another day, right? Like
we could do another episode maybe about
exactly.
About your mum.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, I'm like, oh, I don't know. But I was like, well, I trust her. And so like, let's just try it. And so I only had like a few Reiki sessions, but I think that they were very grounding because I think it's just a shift in the energy. And then it's like, oh, you start to understand what that feels like, so it's just shift. And it's like, when you're ready for the next one, I think it always is going to present itself. I think that, in my earlier years, it was like, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to find this. I'm going to do this better. And it's like, no, like the more I can let go and trust myself, trust God, trust the universe, trust that it
just letting go of it. Yeah, just letting go of it.
Whatever you need is going to be provided.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I only had a few of those sessions, but one of the things that she brought up was a book called The Untethered Soul.
Yeah, I've heard that. Is that Gabor Mate?
What's that?
Is that Gabor Mate or Gabor Mate, or however you pronounce it?
No, it's what's his name? Michael. Oh, it's right here actually. Michael Singer.
Let's have a look. Can you bring it up to the camera? Let's promo this one.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. I got mixed up with it. I think it was Untethered something else that I'm thinking of. But yeah, I've seen that. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right. So I'm like reading this book, and well, it's kind of like the healing back pain book, but in a very different way, in a more spiritual way. Like it's not a super spiritual book, but one of the things he says, which at the time I didn't believe, and now I've shifted my perspective, is that everything is spiritual. And I think the more the deeper I get in my healing journey, the more I think that is true. I think that what I've started to acknowledge now is that I think that some of this pain was really like a soul pain. I always was so fixated on it's my body, it's my mind, and and now I'm like, no, I think it even goes deeper than that.
I love that. That's really beautiful.
So that was a really another really helpful book that I read, I guess about a year ago. Really started again to just kind of shift these little perspectives. And then, and by this time I'm doing pretty good. I'm in hot yoga, and getting off my pain meds, and I guess I was doing pretty good. So then COVID hits, and I get laid off from my job. I never saw it coming. I think the perfectionistic side of me just was really fed a lot by my job. And what has really evolved over, I guess, since April is like I was like, you know what, this is an opportunity for me to get even in better shape, because I was doing hot yoga, but I wasn't really doing a lot of other stuff. So it was like, you know, the gyms are closed. All right, we have a Peloton that I never use. I use Peloton. Oh,
Perfect opportunity. Yeah.
Now I'm gonna like run. And so then I start doing like these more intense physical activities that I never would do, because I still was like, okay, so my body's, I believed that my body is strong, and I don't need to be afraid of, you know, more intense physical activities. But I still didn't really want to do it, you know. So then it's like, okay. So I'm like, I have no excuse. I'm just gonna do it. So I do it, and so then I start listening to some more podcasts, and I started listening to more like mind body podcasts. And that was really like when I feel like things really have taken another jump forward. So I started listening to like On Purpose with Jay Shetty, and and some other folks that he had on. Discovered Nicole's podcast, and so that's how I discovered your work, and that's really been another layer. And I think that it created a lot more awareness for me around, what am I telling myself every day? What are the stories that I have on repeat? You know, I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. You know, and
unworthy and not enough.
And so I feel like, you know, about 6 years ago, I really had this big shift with the cranial sacral therapy work, and I feel like I'm now coming out on the other side of another really big shift. And this is like, it's like, no, I am worthy. Like, I think that there, you know, it's like, I would say, yeah, I love and accept myself. Yeah. But not this, right? Not this, not this.
Not fully embodying it. Yeah.
And I think COVID has, while it's been a really challenging time, it has also given me a lot of space to really examine some of these really deep rooted beliefs that I've had about myself that are not true.
Same.
You know, and so it hasn't, you know, I mean, it's not always pretty, but it's like, it's been so necessary and so worth it. And if COVID hadn't happened, if I hadn't lost my job, I know I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be acknowledging a lot of these things that otherwise I would only acknowledge, you know, with like, you know, some of my close friends, you know, but I think it's just so important.
Do you think then that this last shift has been like more along the lines of just the self-compassion aspect of it, the really just fully embracing everything that's happened and how it's all gone for you? Or has there been any other sort of modalities or learnings that you've kind of implemented from the more TMS-y kind of world, do you think, as well? Or is that just more realizing that you are okay and enough as you are?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a hybrid. So yeah, I started to realize like, oh, what are the stories I'm telling myself through particularly the On Purpose podcast, and just started realizing, oh, I can shift my focus a little bit. I can play with my perspective a little bit more. And then I started working with a career coach, and she asked me, she was encouraging me to start just for myself acknowledging my story, because I still was kind of really pushing that away. And then I guess recently, you know, I discovered Nicole's podcast and joined the Journal Speak group, because I was like, oh, this is Journal Speak thing. It's interesting. And I don't journal a lot, but I'm journaling more. So I feel like I'm almost been going a little backwards, you know, but it's,
that's
you know,
really interesting though.
A little bit,
exactly.
a little
Every
bit
story
different.
is different.
And so yeah, some of it, I think there's some TMS aspects, but one thing I realized, I guess even before I discovered TMS, was I started to shift my focus on things that made me feel good. And then when I discovered TMS, it was like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. And then this year, it's been more of that. It's been like, how much more, like I can love myself more, right?
Yes.
I can accept myself more, and not like a more. You know, this is
like a more.
I'm releasing, and trusting. And so I had also, and so I've been trying to listen more, because I think before there was just a lot of resistance on my part. And
listen to yourself, you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so I followed like Gabby Bernstein's work for a long time, but not like real closely. And anyway, she had like this free thing, and I was like, she was marketing her Spirit Junkie Masterclass, and I was like, well, you know, I'll just do the free thing, whatever. And then I'm like, oh no, like there's something here.
The two worlds collided.
Yeah. And so what has happened since COVID is I've been establishing more guardrails, because every time I've been tempted to go into that cyclical, like, you know, beating myself up, like that mental kind of anguish, which then feeds into your body. And, you know, it's just that whole thing. I've just been developing a lot more guardrails. You know, it started with Jay's podcast, and then it was Gabby's masterclass. And it just was like so perfect, because it was like, this is exactly what I needed to hear at exactly the right time. And
love it.
And then you just kind of keep going, and then, you know, you kind of just stay in motion.
It gets stronger and stronger and stronger the more you do it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You listen to your intuition as well. That gets stronger and stronger. I see it as kind of like two voices in my head. I've got the super critical freak show, you're never good enough one, which is getting much quieter now. It rarely raises its ugly head. Not ugly, I love you. But and then the kind of intuitive side of me that knows really what's going on and what really feeds my soul and what really makes me feel grounded and settled and whatever. And I think it just takes time, like you said before, for those voices to kind of one to drown out the other, and the balance to sort of be regulated. It still happens to me as well from time to time, but certainly I'm so aware of it now. Like, it's just obvious as soon as it comes up. It's almost like a different voice now that's like rather than like, no, you have to be super perfect, and you have to be careful, and you have to be, you have to show up exactly as you know, all that bullshit. Yeah.
Right. Well, and then I think it's like we can see that voice, and then it's like, oh yeah, there it is.
Just have a conversation with it. It's cool.
All right. Yeah, there it is. Okay.
There it is.
All right. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep doing my thing.
That's massive.
And Gabby talks a lot about that, and just bouncing back faster. So it's not like we're human. We're all going to
happen.
Stumble and have falls, and but there's no mistakes, and so it's just coming back faster. That's it.
Yeah.
Just seeing it, recognizing it, and then claiming the truth. You know, that we are enough. Yeah. You know, and you know, and really I think lean a lot towards joy. You know, I think the more fun I have, the more I'm like, I need to do more of this, right? And more joy. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest things with chronic pain and chronic illness, is that we lose sight of that, and we lose sight of some of these things that just in our hearts like kind of feed our souls.
Yeah,
you know, I think that's one of the biggest things, I think.
Did you find as well, I've noticed this, and it's only been a fairly recent realization for me, that did you think that like you were repressing negative emotion and traumatic events, whatever? Did you find that you were like repressing joy as well as fears and stuff? I've noticed that only recently. Like, great things happen to me and I'll be like, yeah, good, okay, what's the next thing I need to perfect?
Yep.
I don't soak that 100%.
In. 100%. Well, because I think I just saw a statistic the other day about like 70%, or like negative emotion, I think is like 70% more stronger than positive. So our brains, I think, we naturally
like gravitate towards that rather
I
than.
think it's probably that survival, or fear instinct, right? Like we're just trying to be safe.
Yeah.
And the irony is that what we think is going to keep us safe really just keeps us stuck in the muck.
Exactly that. I need that on a t-shirt, I think.
Yeah. I think that would be a good t-shirt. Yeah. For sure.
So what happened then? Okay, so you found the podcast and you found the different stories and the modalities, and TMS kind of took a bit more center stage to your other healing stuff. And what's changed since then? Have you noticed any more shifts, or is it just kind of gradually gotten better with time?
It's been kind of both. And so I feel like it's been another layer of, I guess one of the things I noticed is that even with all of like the healing work that I'd done, I still had a little bit of surviving instead of thriving.
Right.
It was like, oh, thank God it's the weekend. I survived another week of work.
I think I still have that though as well. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know whether we'll ever get rid of that.
There's all layers.
Trying to perfect it. Stop trying to perfect your healing.
That's right. And I think throughout the past few months, it's really been like, oh no, I'm actually like really looking forward to my future. Because I think before it was like, oh gosh, I hope nothing bad's gonna happen. Oh my gosh, like, I hope like, but it took a lot of acknowledgement. It took, acknowledging my story. It took, I don't journal all the time, but I definitely am journaling more. It took acknowledging some things that I think are really ugly. And you know what? They were, at least subconsciously, like really scary, to acknowledge, but that was feeding the loop, right? Because it's like, and I think for me, like I talk about a lot of things, but there's a difference between talking about things and acknowledging things, I think.
Yeah.
And acknowledging things is just really acknowledging in your heart, and then the other thing has been that I've started to actually do a lot more is shifting my perspective. And so it took even a while for when I was laid off to then go, oh, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this work that is going to be with me for the rest of my life, because I wouldn't have done it, right? Because it was a lot, it felt quite unstable at some points, but then it's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? This is amazing for my future. It's amazing for my family. Like this is going to be multi-generational.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I couldn't have done that if I'm in a stressful corporate job right now. No, so I think there's just been a lot of like shifting my perspective. Another example is like lately I've been having lower back pain, so it's still there. It's just popping up. It's like, we're still here. And I was still powering through it. I'm running every day. I'm going to hot yoga at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I see you. I know what you are. You can be there if you want to be, but I'm not stopping. I'm just going to keep going, and all of that was fine. And then the other day I realized, what is that story? What is the story? And the story is my mattress is old. I have an old mattress. It needs to be replaced. True. All true. Also, I don't have to have this back pain.
No, it's not the mattress. It's not the mattress.
Mm-mm.
You know how many mattresses I had when I moved to England? 6 new mattresses. My partner was going absolutely spare with me. It was like, what's wrong with this one? Can you send this one back? What's the guarantee on this one? Check the guarantee before you buy another one. It's like, oh my God, I tried so many different things. I was just sure it was the night thing. It must be the mattress. Never the fucking mattress.
Yeah.
let that be a lesson in itself. That can be on a t-shirt in itself. It's
All right,
never
so
the
we're just gonna
mattress.
start a t-shirt line.
Yeah,
I
totally.
actually, I am actually, I'm creating a blog called Inside Out Living with
Love
Jamie,
it.
and I actually do have a t-shirt, and so
love it.
maybe we just need to make some t-shirts together. So
Definitely. I'm up for
the
that.
one I'm making first is "Leave It All on the Mat."
I love that. Oh, I definitely need that. You're gonna have to send me one of those straight
Yeah,
away.
yeah, I
I'll
will.
model the shit out of that.
I love it. You know, like I in all my jobs, I just like loved making fun, cool t-shirts. You know, I'm
I
like,
love that.
who doesn't want a fun t-shirt?
But look, just look how your story is now permeating into your job or your potential. You never know where that blog is going to go. Just like I did mine, I was like, whatever, I'll just build something. Maybe some people will read it, and it
Yeah.
became my actual like dharma. Now it is my purpose and my job, so to speak. You know, that turned it from one thing and from a painful, horrific experience into something really beautiful. And I think that is probably going to have a big role in your life as well. No matter where this goes for you, you'll take that with you, and you're owning your story, and your truth is like
Yeah.
power now.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It
Amazing.
is like, it is power, you know, and I don't know what I'm betting it's like this for you. It's like, just do more of what is joyful. You
Yeah.
know, like I'm creating this blog because it brings me joy. I'm
Yeah.
writing because it brings me joy. I'm making this t-shirt because I like fun t-shirts and it brings
Yeah.
me joy. You
Exactly.
know?
But just being able to hear that voice in your mind above
Yeah.
well, that'll never go anywhere. Well, that's pointless. What's the point in doing that blog? What are you wasting your time for? Get a job. Da, 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 da. Listening to that
Yeah.
like instinctive voice of what feels right for you. And someone asked me this the other day, like, how do I know the difference between my critical voice over here and my instinct voice? How do I know which one is the right one to go with? And I think for me, the difference is the feeling that those things give you.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you know something is the right decision for you, your intuition is talking, it feels calm. Even if it's scary, and even if it's like, you know, starting this yoga business or starting this new blog or whatever it is you're doing, like it's still scary. It still scares the living shit out of me no matter what I decide to do. But how does it feel like in your heart? And like you said, like
Right.
how's your soul responding to that?
Yeah.
And if it's the critical voice, it'll generally be something like really vibrating, and my solar plexus will be like, no. And if it's something that is intuition based, it's like, yeah, that feels right.
Yeah.
And I literally now, pretty much all of my decisions, choices, whatever I need to make, I question that with that intention, like, how does that feel?
Mm-hmm.
And then make decision based on that. And it has yet to steer me wrong. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yes. 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 Exactly. I think that's exactly right. And that's actually exactly why I've stuck with cranial sacral therapy.
Yeah, if it feels right and it works for
Even
you, carry
because
on.
um, even throughout this, even my cranial sacral therapist, like, well, how does it feel in your body?
Yeah.
Does it feel in your soul?
Yeah.
You know, because I think um, it's an evolution. It just kind of it's you learn and you learn and you learn and you learn, and that's been super cool too, because I think the more we can shift into what feels good, the more we also shift into more of like a growth mindset.
Yeah, for sure. And that might
Um,
be different for everybody. Like everybody
yeah,
I've spoken to has something different in their life that works for them. But I think as well, the underlying feeling, like you said, from the cranial sacral or from the Reiki or acupuncture, whatever it is, that feeling that it gives you of like a soothing, settling, whatever that is, it's a similar kind of like flavor, isn't it, of what works for you, whether it is meditation or whether it is yin yoga or whatever it is that feeling of settling, and your craziness is stopped. You know, you said
yeah,
yourself, like you passed out on that massage table, and that is like ultimate surrender.
yeah,
So whatever that is for you, as long as it's kind of, you know, relatively healthy and it's not like heroin or something, then great, like go with it, you know, do whatever it
yeah,
is that makes you feel good. Like I'm down with that. It doesn't have to be, this definite recipe for TMS success. Definitely. I think there's so many different modalities that can do that for settling your nervous system down. Like whatever works, just carry on doing that. If your soul is saying that that's the right for you, then carry on.
Right. Yeah. I think so it's just so much of a mind shift.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
know,
There's a huge element, like you say, about perspective. It's for me, the last kind of piece to my puzzle was definitely the mindset side of things. When I'd got a hang of the journaling and the meditation, and I was definitely soothing myself and listening to my voice more and just like addressing and, like you say, definitely acknowledging all these things that had happened to me. I got through the majority of like the ugly stuff sort of thing, and I was used to that now. And it just took that last part of the puzzle that was like, okay, now I need to shift. My fear needs to die down, or my perfectionism needs to die down, or that sort of last bit was the switch for me that kind of changed into weeks of pain free rather than just moments or hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't know about you, but I feel like the more I claim joy and the more I claim things that are important to me, the better it gets.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, and I think I'm working with a career coach, and she's like, well, can you just claim this? And it's like, claimed it, and then I immediately dismissed it.
Right.
But I already started to make the shift, right? So then it's like, you got a stake in the ground. You can just keep claiming it over and over and over. So it may not feel true, 100% true the first time, but then if you keep claiming it, it's like we've watered our pain, or all these years or whatever, and then it's like, oh, the opposite can be true too.
Yeah.
If we water these things that are good,
Exactly.
at a
It just
higher
takes
vibration.
practice, doesn't it? Yeah, it takes practice.
Yeah.
Like any of this, like you said about the neural pathways and the unlearning your pain, unlearning all that cycle. It's the same thing for joy, especially if you've been repressing that as well. It takes practice, but like awareness is the first step in that, and you're noticing yourself shutting down the joy or not really leaning into it or whatever. But there's so much power in that, like finding out what actually rocks your own boat and what makes you happy, and just acknowledging that and actually asking for it and putting it first and prioritizing yourself and stuff like that. The simplest things, just stopping saying yes to everyone and everything.
Yeah.
I've been putting my own self-practice with yoga on the back burner for the last few weeks, and I've only been practicing like once or twice a week maximum, just cramming so much other stuff in for other people. It's like I'm not doing what I preach, I'm not practicing what I'm preaching here. I'm actually doing the opposite. So the last week or so, I've turned that around and put more priority into doing my own stuff, and already feeling like miles better, and actually doing more anyway, which is kind of odd. Prioritizing myself, but still feeling more energetic than to put my energy into other things. So it always delivers if you carry on doing that. Love that.
Yeah. Well, you're giving yourself a lot of self-love.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when we love ourselves, we can do so much more.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm still probably miles away from the actual, I could say that I love myself. I don't know whether I could say that yet, maybe one day, but I just accept accept myself. I accept how I am, why I am how I am. If I'm crazy, if I'm up monkey mind, depending on whatever, doesn't matter. I'm okay. Like I'm enough. That's fine. I can do whatever.
Yeah. So, it's all a process.
We're coming up to like over an hour now, so let's like wrap up with some key stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like, I mean, you've kind of hit on the key elements to your recovery in terms of the treatment or the modalities and stuff that you've used. What would be your best advice, I guess, for anyone else out there that is like in the thick of it where you were, or wherever they're at in their journey? What would you say were the key pieces of advice that you would give someone struggling?
I think the most important thing, and I didn't realize this fully until kind of recently, is really trusting yourself, trusting your intuition. And if you feel like you can't trust yourself on that level, like trust that you have like a higher level of consciousness, and that so in cranial sacral therapy, they call it the inner physician. Trust that your life force knows, you know, and I think it's just because we get so conditioned to giving away our power, and we got to take it back. You know, you got to take it back. It's, I think that that's one of the biggest things. You know, the more I claim my life, the more I claim my life.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a process, but I think it really starts with even doing little things that you can to cultivate self-trust. You know, and I think I mean I pushed away things I think that would cultivate self-trust, you know, and so now I'm choosing little things, right? I'm keeping my promises to myself.
Yes.
And so I think that was a big one. You know, I think really not being discouraged is always really important. Because
that's a really good one.
You know, it's a journey, and we're all on our own journeys. And I just don't think it's a mistake. You know, it's just, we have to shift our perspective. It's another opportunity to learn. You know, I think sometimes with pain and chronic illness, we're like, oh, well, this is some meaning or whatever. Guess what? Maybe it's just effing pain.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just chronic illness, and that's where you're at right now.
Yeah.
But I think it's important. It's important to acknowledge it, but it's also important, again, like, what makes you feel good? What brings happiness to your heart? You know, and any little thing, I just think that it's just so much shifting perspective and just honoring kind of where you're at. And then I think it's also the more guardrails you have in place, you know,
to protect physical
things, you know, whether it's physical solutions that work, whether it's journaling, accountability partners, therapists, like whatever you need, just get those guardrails in place so that you can, I think, not get pulled too far off.
Stay on track and stuff. Yeah. That's great advice.
I think that's probably the big one. And I think the last one's probably just that you're not broken. You know, we're not broken. You know, we are as whole and complete as every other human on the planet. Yes. I can't take credit for that, by the way. My cranial sacral therapy says that, but it's so true. You know, we are as whole and complete as every other human on the planet. And I think that is, you know, we see one perception of everybody else, and then we internally, I think a lot of times, I know I do, I look at myself differently. So I'm not comparing apples to apples here.
No.
And I think that part of that is just seeing ourselves in all the parts that we are. The truth, not, you know, the lies that we've learned over the years. I think that, you know, we weren't born knowing fear and anxiety and depression and all of these things. But, you know, over the years, that these things kind of get layered on. But I think, but it's not yours. You know, it's not yours. You weren't born with it. It's not yours. It does not belong to you. I think that's the big thing, where it goes back to the more I can claim my life, and, you know, the fact that I am enough and I'm worthy of all good things. You know, I think that is a big difference, but I think it's a process.
Yeah, it's definitely
a process. Not overnight.
No, and you can definitely hear that maybe a million times and just not feel it and not get it. But it is a process, much like healing is in general. Like, it takes however long it's going to take for your specific story and your specific trauma or whatever it is that you've been through. Like, it's not, I think every step is necessary, You can't really hack this. You can't,
Yeah.
supersede any other kind of journey that someone else has been on, or she's done it in a month. Why can't I do it in a month? It's not about that. It's not taking a magic pill.
Right.
Every step is like, it feels like it's necessary to unravel whatever lesson or layer that is for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
I've loved
yeah.
this conversation. There's so much stuff in here that I had no idea about. So it's been really insightful to learn a little bit more about other people's, journeys, and just what's helped you, what continues to help you, and just how like different your life is now. It must be, I mean, your husband must just be like, what is going on here? Who is this new person?
Oh my gosh. So I have to tell you a funny story on that.
Go on.
Yes, he is 100% saying that. And so now I'm working on handstands. Like 10 years ago, I could not get off the couch.
Right.
I'm now doing handstands, and well, I'm trying to do handstands. So they haven't been working in the studio for me. So I've been trying to do them in the backyard. And well, right now, I think I fell about 20 times on Sunday, but the ground was soft. So yes, that is the life of my husband these days, is like going outside and watching his wife like do cartwheels. And
I love that though. That's amazing. What a turnaround. And I love that yoga has been such a key part of your story as well, that starting off with the gentle practice and just getting back to feeling strong and powerful, and but also like there's so many more elements to yoga that help with this as well, like I'm sure and energetically, breath work, meditative and stuff like that. It's all so soothing to the nervous system, um, as well as empowering and getting strong in your body. It's just the perfect recipe for that kind of thing. But it's amazing to hear that you're into so many other sports as well, and so much more active, and that exposure therapy side of things has been so strong in your story of like, I'm not broken, I'm gonna push through, I'm gonna carry on, and just gotten stronger and stronger. So do you feel now that you're pain free for the most part? You get flare ups and stuff now and again, but you're on the other side of it now, right?
yeah. Well, the low back pain, it was funny because it was sticking around. I mean, but literally it was just the other day. And I think even when I reached out, like, I'm like, oh yeah, like it's so interesting because I'd be doing yoga and doing all these, poses that I couldn't do even 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And then I go to bend over and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
And it was just the other
I know how
day.
that feels.
It was just like, what is the story here? What is the story? How can you do this pose and then you can barely bend over? And it was just like, what is the story? Mm-hmm. Oh, the story is that I have an old mattress, and so that's why my back hurts.
Right.
And then it was like literally gone. So yes.
I love it. So I think for everyone, I mean, I don't talk for everyone, but I think the majority of stories that I've heard, there's always going to be maybe a little element of like symptom imperative that comes and goes with stressful times, or when your mindset's not quite right, or you're being self-critical. Or I find this a lot in yoga. I was forever checking my alignment and forever like, am I doing this right? Am I going to be able to do this move? Am I going to be able to do the back bend? They were always my nemesis. Like, as soon as I thought, oh, gonna be able to do this, I check myself in the mirror, like, am I even in the cobra properly? And then bam, it would be like, here we go. Here's your dose of pain for the day for thinking like that. Like, I would get flare-ups in yoga, thinking it was physical, obviously previously, but it's all going on up here. Self-criticism. Don't ever practice in front of a mirror if you've got TMS, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, no.
I tell my students in the Zoom class, like, just watch me. Don't look at yourself in the little window, because that's going to drive you nuts, because you're going to go, oh, I can't do that like they're doing that. And I'm going to, no, turn off that story as fast as you can.
Yeah, just show up.
Accept where you're at. Exactly.
Yeah, for me, I've been doing yoga for a lot of years, but I now do it at 6 a.m., which is insane because normally I couldn't do a work meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And it's like it gave me a clean slate.
Love
so that. If you're either a morning person or you can get up, like, it just gives me a clean slate to start
Yeah, I
with
love that. I love that.
in the morning. And it's funny, like it's a little harder, but it's also like
It's really
now
empowering to do that.
if I
Yeah.
skip it, I'm like, I notice the difference. Like,
Yeah.
no, every part of me needs that clean slate first thing in the morning.
Yeah. And that's similar, I guess, to like when I was doing journaling every day and meditation every day. That had to be in the morning for me. One, because otherwise I wouldn't get to it and wouldn't do it.
Yep.
But it
Yep.
sets you up for the day. And sometimes, depending on what you're journaling about, it might be disruptive to your day, but you just putting in the time, a kind of a ritual sort of, no pressure ritual, but
Right.
setting aside a time where, you get up and you brush your teeth, where you get up, you do your yoga, you get up, you have your breakfast, where you get up, you do your journaling. It's
Yep.
important as that,
Yep.
to just keep yourself kind of on track in that way. It certainly helped me in that way too. I'm definitely much more of a morning person. I couldn't even say I'm a morning person. That's a joke. My partner's going to watch this and be like, yeah, right. You're not a morning person. But I'm certainly more of a morning person than I am an evening person for that kind of stuff. I think it definitely sets you up right for the day, and you feel so accomplished as well when you've done it. And
Yeah.
yeah, you can't really beat that feeling either of just like empowered, not in control, because nothing's in control, but you're really influencing how the rest of your day goes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So any last kind of tidbits of wisdom you want to add in? Or I don't want to like put you on the spot, but I think you've given us so much great advice and beautiful story, and just I'm amazed at how far you've come for literally having these issues your whole life. Like,
Yeah.
this is amazing story. From 4 years old to 37 now, to just like literally thriving, is just such a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, no,
Um,
thank you for letting me share.
you
I
owning it
don't,
now. It's going to be public on the internet.
I'm actually like, I'm just actually excited because it's just like, I think, I read in the Journal Speak Facebook group, and I'm just like, my heart really goes out
Yeah.
to everybody who, no matter where they are in their TMS journey, because it's just like, man, I think we've all been there,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and I think, one, it's so brave of everybody in that group for just putting themselves out there. But then two, I think telling our real story, not the one that we've created for ourselves, but the real one,
Yeah.
is just really empowering,
Massively.
and it needs to come out. It needs to come out for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think it's healing in itself just by acknowledging it and just like actually living it. It's your truth, that's your story. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, it will definitely help who knows how many people just by showing up and sharing what you've shared today. I'm massively grateful that you wanted to take part in this, and I'm sure that it will be really helpful for a lot of people.
yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on. It was really fun.
You're
And
welcome.
I'm definitely cheering you on. I think your own, we inspire each other,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And it was just like, oh my gosh, this girl like was in a wheelchair, and now she's like,
I mean, I wasn't always in a wheelchair. It was on and off, and I don't want to necessarily for people to think that I was like massively disabled. It was on and off, but yeah, it was. I won't skirt over the fact that it was horrific, but yeah, it almost feels like a bad dream now, though. Like now that I'm kind of through it, it
yeah,
feels like, was that even real? It was real, but it doesn't feel real anymore. So
right. Yeah,
everybody's
it's
got
no
that to
longer
look
who we
forward
are.
to. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
no longer who we are. We are different,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
it.
But I think all the things that we've gone through give us a lot more compassion,
Yes,
and
massively.
it's really changed my perspective and how I can love other people.
For real. I didn't even used to like people before I did this.
Yeah.
I didn't. I honestly didn't. And now it's like, it feels like I can't go a day without helping other people, and how much that feeds your own soul as well. I had no idea. Like, helping people actually makes you feel great as well, which is
Yes.
quite a lesson in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great book on that called Give and Take.
Okay.
What's his name? It's by Adam Grant.
Okay. Love
But
the
it's
sound of
great.
that.
I feel like you might like that one.
Yeah, love that. Well, I will put all of the links to the stuff that we've discussed today in the description in the video and in the article that I put up with all your story and stuff. So if anybody wants to check out anything that we talked about today, they can go there. And obviously they can find you in the Journal Speak group as well on Facebook. So
Yeah.
anybody that wants to shoot any questions to you, if that's okay with you, to just go
Yeah,
and find you
absolutely.
there, or yeah.
Fire away. That's what we're here for. We're all here
Awesome.
to help each other. So
Yeah. Well,
sure.
Jamie, it's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you a brilliant rest of your day and
Thank
stay
you.
active in the yoga, and I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you. Likewise. Don't be a
All right,
stranger.
my darling. No, absolutely not. Right. I'm gonna just, yeah, I'm gonna do a little outro, but I will
Okay.
catch you soon. Thank you
All
so much,
right. Thanks.
Jamie.
Bye, Danny.
Take care. So that was Jamie. What an amazing story. Phew, I feel actually knackered after listening to that. That was very hectic. But amazing to see how far she's come, and also just like learning about loads of different techniques that she kind of uses, and the cranial sacral stuff I'd never really known about. So really interesting stuff. I hope you enjoyed it. I will release this on the website in the next few days, and you will get all the links below. You can ask questions on my social media and get involved about this conversation there, or just fire me any questions from my website and all the things. All the links will be down here somewhere. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to submit a story to share and help other people, you can go to mytmsjourney.com/stories and submit yours there, or find out the other stories that we have posted previously. And yeah, I look forward to sharing more episodes of this with you soon. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.